Hi everybody, I'm Patricia Buckley. I'm the copyright coordinator for Sheridan College. And I have to tell you, being the copyright coordinator is sort of a difficult job because as soon as people hear copyright, their eyes start rolling back in their head. And I have to tell you too that it's even more difficult being me, especially this winter, because not only am I copyright, I really like winter, and people hate me right now if you're looking out the window. So bear with me for the time that I've got. I really appreciate the time. The reason I'm here is that the college is taking a huge step out. We've been in a safe harbor in terms of being with Access Copyright, and we're taking a step out of that safe harbor into some choppy seas. And I just want to tell you what's going on, and especially tell you about the tools that we have so that you can be copyright literate and reduce our risk as much as possible. So this is called Copyright Help at Sheridan College. I'm not going to tell you all about the things you can and can't do, just where you can find help. And I am your #1 source, by the way. I'm at Trafalgar, but I travel. Just don't hesitate to ever contact me. We're just going to cover why should you bother being copyright literate? It's a good question. What's available, and where can you find it? So why should you bother? And I know I've been through these before with a number of you, but I think they're still really important. To respect copyright owners, such as your own creative colleagues. I'm sure a number of you have either written books or written journal articles or produced a film or taken a photograph. So copyright is a balance between copyright owners and copyright users, like we are in education, where we're using other people's material to teach. So it's worth remembering. To model good copyright behavior for your students, of course. They're very important, especially when I'm in the business faculty and hearing you all talk about our students going out into the business world. It's really important for them to know what they can and can't use, especially if they're presenting to people, for example, and people are saying, whoa, wait, you're using my material. So it's important. And to ensure you or Sheridan are not involved in copyright infringement charges. Usually I say the first one to me and the second one are the most important ones, but just to be perverse, today I'm going to say of these three, the third one is probably, given where we're going, the more equal one to get Animal Farm on you and Orwellian. That one today is maybe the most important one given where we're at. So what's going on? There has been a sea change in education since 2012. And I know that, you know, when you're looking at things like, I can't do that, and I can't do that, and like, there's a restriction on this. Honestly, I know it's hard to believe, but there really has been a sea change in your favor in the last 2 years. Hard to believe, I know, but educators have been recognized that you need to use material to teach. And that has really opened up in the last couple of years. So there was a new Copyright Act, education went into it. There was a hard fight to get it in to say that educators should have the right to deal with material fairly. There was a new Supreme Court judgment, really huge. It's cited internationally, this judgment, that educators should have the right to copy short excerpts without paying for them. And while they're all really exciting and wonderful, and copyright dweebs like myself are just like, wow, this is so cool. I know you probably don't think it's really cool, and I don't want you having to read all of this stuff. Believe me, it is not like crystal clear. But what has happened is that lawyers who are interested in education have written us a fair dealing policy to let you know what these big changes have been all about. And I'll cover that in a bit too. As a result of all of this, there's been a real assessment in education as to whether we need to license ourselves to use material. Anyone here belong to Access Copyright, by the way? Because this is where this is going. Written a book, journal article? Oh, interesting, okay. Access Copyright is a copyright collective. It represents publishers and authors in Canada and around the world. And how things used to work before these exciting copyright changes was that we, as a college, paid for everything that we wanted to use in terms of photocopying a book, scanning it, and putting it onto Slate. We paid for that privilege. The whole thing about these new copyright changes is that we don't have to pay for short excerpts or for anything we deal fairly with. And so a lot of educational institutions have said to Access Copyright, thanks, no thanks, we are opting out. We're no longer going to pay to license the work that we use. Sheridan is one of the last colleges in Ontario to opt out of this license because it is seen as a little risky, and we wanted to make sure that we had a lot in place for you. Just so that you know what you can do and what's safe. So I think we are actually the last college to opt out, and that's not a bad thing. We wanted to be prudent, we wanted to be safe, we wanted to, hire me for one thing, and then we wanted to make sure that you guys had some tools to deal with what's going on. So that's why we took a little longer, but I think it was justified. So we are opting out as of August 31st, 2014. And that means especially any printed materials, printed books, printed journals, if you're photocopying or if you're scanning, make sure you know what you can do with them, because we're now relying on the fair dealing guidelines. Just a sec, audio visual. These are the fair dealing guidelines. I'll leave some in your offices, but you can always find them in some of the tools that I'm going to show you. And we'll be relying on the copyright exceptions. So, like I say, I don't want to scare you, but there is a little bit of risk. We're sailing out of the nice safe harbor that we've been in into some somewhat choppy seas. So we just want to make sure we're okay. If you see any of these posters, this is the old Access Copyright posters. They said you could copy 10%. I've tried to take everything down that I've seen, but as of August 31st, if you see any of these, tear them down, ignore them totally. We are not going to be with Access Copyright after August 31st. What we will be following is the Sheridan College Fair Dealing Guidelines. And just before I move on to what's available, what tools are available to help you and where, I'm just thinking, is there ever an excuse for being copyright literate? And I'm from Toronto, so yeah. If you're Mayor Ford, however, I think the rest of us faculty should be more aware than maybe he is of anything. Sorry, that was I can't help it. I hate Rob Ford. So what's available and where? Because I'm a librarian, you just go to the library webpage, and this is where you will find copyright information. Under their information for faculty, they have amazing stuff for faculty, by the way, but one of the things they have is my copyright guidelines. They look like this, and what I have tried to do is break it down so that you're not having to read through a lot of legal stuff. It's just really to the point, I hope. And let me know if it ever isn't, or if you have advice for me. I'm really happy to take that. But we have copying guidelines for library databases. We have copying guidelines for books and articles, which is incredibly important right now since we're going into those choppy seas. Internet content, the FAQ I get all the time from faculty isn't, like, gee, can you elucidate the Copyright Act for me or tell me about fair dealing? It's always, can I use YouTube in the classroom? It is addressed here. You can indeed, you just have to make sure that it's from a legitimate source and that the copyright holder did put it up. I actually wanted to call this, this whole thing, Where's the Beef? And then I thought, well, is that just showing my age that I remember? I remember a commercial from 30 years ago, and I thought, well, yeah, I could use that. I'll just find it on YouTube, but I'll show it to them so anyone younger will understand where I'm from. And I couldn't find anything that Wendy's had actually put up themselves, Wendy's being the one who had done the commercial. So I could not show you this YouTube video. So I get hoisted by my own petard quite often. I understand sometimes where you guys are coming from too. So there's the Copyright Services Guideline. You can download the Fair Dealing Guidelines from here as well. Slate has been enormously helpful to us, and they have, if you use the pull-down menu for My Library, here I am pointing at my screen, I should point over here, pull-down menu for My Library, you will see copyright guidance. That gets you to the student and faculty page for copyright. There's also a Copyright at Sheridan box there where we're basically just saying, oh, hey, if you're putting something up that might be under copyright, Maybe just make sure you know what you're doing. Those little sentences lead you right back into the copyright guidelines. On the copyright guidelines, you will notice a little box advertising short, fun videos available on Slate to help you copyright. This is an initiative from 24 colleges in Ontario. I helped write the content. My colleagues at Fanshawe and Seneca were instrumental in making the videos. We did win an award for it, so we're rather proud of this. The fair dealing video that I just showed you was part of it. And it's entirely voluntary. You are all enrolled. In fact, if you enroll people in Slate that are faculty and staff, you don't have a choice of just faculty. You have to enroll everybody. So the people who trim our trees, the people who pick up our garbage, they can all take this course too if you want to pass it on. But it is really for you guys, for faculty. So entirely voluntary, available to you at any time. There's short videos. That was actually one of the longest. Most of them are 1 to 2 minutes. So it's like lynda.com where you can take one and then build your knowledge up by taking the next one. You can take a video, I should show you the page. You can take a video, if you see there's module 2 up there, you can download a video summary in PDF, just so you have something to go back to. And if you're an incredible keener, you can take a quiz as well. Thanks a lot. And as you can see, it's really hard to avoid seeing me in all of these places. And if you're like me, I hate watching anything. I never read instructions. I just want to phone someone and say, I'm doing this, what can I do? You can do that too. So I'm just going to show you one of the first general videos. The copyright literacy videos, there's a general portion of about 4 or 5 videos that just give you a general overview of copyright. And then there are about 17 practical videos that deal with the one we just saw, dealing with fair dealing. Can I use a YouTube video? Can I use Google Images on my PowerPoint? Very practical. Don't have to view them all at once. Just whenever you've got a question, they're good to go to. So I'll show you the first one in the series so you get an idea of what's available. So just so I made sure I told you where those were. They are on Slate. You will notice them when you get into your Slate courses, but you can also find them on my copyright guidelines. Oh, I'm not as experienced as you guys are in teaching these things. So again, you can find them on my copyright guidelines. There's a box there that says, here's how you get into them. They're on Slate and everybody is registered. If you have any trouble finding them, just let me know. Finally, as I say, if you just don't have time to read stuff, you don't have time to listen to stuff, help is always available. Trust me, that's what I'm here for. So any phone calls, any emails, send them my way. Thanks very much for your time. Are there any questions?
I have a question. According to the first video that you showed us, are we allowed then to post journal articles inside our Slate courses or just links?
It depends where you're getting it from. It's a really good question. If you're using library databases, they're licensed databases. So the terms of the license are applying in that case, not copyright, unless it got written in, which doesn't happen that often. So yes, if you're using licensed databases, link to them, and your incredible librarians, Gareth, me, and Susan, can always show you how to do that. If you're just taking something from a paper journal, you want to scan it and put it up on Slate, you can do that. It's 10% or one journal article from a journal. Does that answer your question?
I used to use a book which is a compilation of case studies, each individual case study is copyrighted. So I've got 26 case studies in one book with 26 separate copyrights on them.
And did they have copyright stamped on the first page? Was it the Harvard Business Reviews? Western. Look, those ones, they are sometimes really sort of scary looking. And what I'd advise is, because I can't judge it right now, I can't see it, maybe just send us a scan over and show it to me, and I'll judge on that. Because I know some of these case studies, they're really, really strict about what you can do, and it's important to follow them, follow what they want to do. Good question.
I have another question about that 10% when it refers to an article from a journal, and the 10% related to the source that you're using. Are we referring to the journal itself or to the volume of the journal?
I would say go with the journal itself. So just one issue of the journal, right? As opposed to...
That's my question. You said 10% of the source, and we contemplate the source as being the journal?
Yes.
Or the volume where you find the article?
I would say the journal itself, the issue of the journal.
I'm new, so excuse me if I don't fully understand this, but let's say you went and you wanted to put on a YouTube video, okay? So it's on YouTube. Loads of people have loaded onto YouTube in different sections, but it actually is probably 1/100th of a complete movie.
This is a really good question. Did everyone hear that? Because I know we all use YouTube, or can't use YouTube if you're the copyright coordinator in my case. So if you go to YouTube, they're short excerpts is what you're saying?
Correct.
And they're put up by a number of people.
Correct.
This is a difficult one because basically, yeah, their short excerpts is probably under 10%. What's sort of interesting here is that YouTube is licensed material under YouTube, and we sort of have to follow what they're saying. In many cases, you are probably just fine to show them, but what the Canadian Copyright Act wants you to do is make sure that the copyright holder put them up. So even though they might be a short excerpt and they maybe videoed a film or broken open the TPM from a DVD and put it up, they want you to make sure that the copyright owner has put that YouTube video up. And that's what we follow for YouTube videos as opposed to 10%. Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, yes.
That's why I couldn't put the Wendy's commercial up that I wanted to show you. I could find tons of those commercials on YouTube, but I couldn't find one that Wendy's had put up.
Well, that's the reason I asked it, because, yeah, it's not the movie producers that are putting it.
Yeah, and that's where it comes from, of course, is the movie producers are the ones who are afraid of YouTube. That's really what's going on. So the Canadian Copyright Act said, okay, well, as long as they've put it up, you're okay. If they haven't, don't use it. And I do recognize that's hard when you're in a classroom on the fly, but be more aware of it if you're putting it up on Slate, for example. This is where showing your students some good copyright practice really comes into play.
So that's interesting what you said. So on the fly, you're kind of saying, well, it's kind of murky.
I can't say that. I can't say that. I'm just saying that I understand that it, if you try to find something, but it does come down to what you're showing your students, so try your best.
Are students bound by the same copyright laws? So if they're given an assignment and they have to go out and look for a video, do they have to look for a video? Like, let's say they go to YouTube and they look for a video. Would they have to find the video from Wendy's, or would they be able to?
It's really good practice. The fair dealing guidelines are actually just for faculty and staff, and that's causing some problems on my end of things, because I often get asked, well, what can students do? And then I have to go back to the Copyright Act, and there's actually, the fair dealing for students is actually like 6 tests they're supposed to do. So what we're starting to say is generally they're probably okay to follow the fair dealing guidelines. When it comes to YouTube, yes, they should indeed be making sure that the copyright holder was the one who put that up, if that helps.
Patricia, are you available to review course commons with course leaders to ensure that we have not breached the fair dealing, especially for courses that have
Absolutely.
big course commons?
Yeah, and in fact,
Or is the onus on us to
No, if you want me to review, please, yes, that would be a great idea. The only thing I say is just leave a little bit of time, because I have had people going, well, I'm teaching a course tomorrow, is this okay? And I hate it when I have to say, well, you know, you might want to try and find some substitutes. So give yourself some lead time, and I'm more than happy to help you.
Yes, I'm just wondering, what kind of responsibility do we have as faculty when we see students bringing in photocopied material to the classroom? Are we supposed to stop them from bringing it in or from using it? Because sometimes I don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
Maybe copies of
It's a tough one, and because it's student behavior, I'm going to slip that responsibility to, to Sylvia and your ADs. I can tell you what we do in the library, if that's any help, is if we see people photocopying a whole book, we use it as an educational opportunity, and we just say, you're copying a whole book, wow. Did you know we have some guidelines? Did you know the Copyright Act, that's probably not legal? And that's how we deal with it, if that's helpful. But because that's classroom behavior, I will shift that over to Sylvia.
What about this kind of maybe a little unrelated? What about students making YouTube videos themselves of people out there, of the real world?
That's more of a privacy issue, but there is the actual just doing the actual video. They are allowed to make YouTube videos in the law. They're also allowed to make mashups. As long as they're doing it for themselves, like we could not make a video, for example, for Sheridan as a mashup, because that would be a commercial use, but apparently non-commercial use is fine. In terms of privacy, I'm not really a privacy lawyer at all, but my understanding is as long as you have the consent of people, or you've taken pictures of them that they're going about their daily business in a place that they could expect to be filmed, they should be okay. You might want to check with our legal person, Alexa Abascott, on that one, though.
Hi, Patricia. For access to copyright, that ends in August.
August 31st.
Now, course packs that were created prior to that, my understanding was it was Grenville that worked and looked after that under that umbrella. So any whole, let's say we have whole articles that are assembled in a course pack, then would we then see you about that as opposed to assuming that Grenville is taking that?
That is an excellent question, thank you. Yes, if you're making a course pack, which is articles or book chapters, and you bind them together and sell them through the bookstore, and you do that through Grenville, you can still continue doing that. It gets a little complicated because they have their own business license with Access Copyright, and that's fine with us. We're not going to, I know that people like course packs. I know there's a reason for them, so you can continue making them. You will find the library might not put them on the bookshelves, though, and you probably can't put them on reserves because we're a little apprehensive about copying Access Copyright material.
Can students record us in the classroom, either audio or video, or let's say there's like a seminar, that somebody's a workshop?
That's out of my jurisdiction. Thank you. That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure.
I think it works the other way as well, right? If you lecture captures and you have questions and answers, you have to give students permission as well.
Oh, interesting.
I think so.
And for lecture captures, by the way, because I know that the flipped classroom is big, if you're using copied material in your lecture captures, I've never quite understood this, what the government was thinking, that you were going to hold up a book and say, well, here's a whole chapter of a book, class. And, but they are concerned that if you have copyright protected material in a lecture capture, keep it under 10%, because otherwise we have to delete them from Slate.
So as we're moving from sort of hard copy course packs to maybe e-course packs, I guess we wouldn't work that through Grenville. So then it comes back as an internal issue, I guess, right?
Yes, and I like I say, I know course packs, people need them, and students really like something solid. But because the new laws allow this now, if you want, get your librarians, for example, to show you how to do permanent links from our databases. So instead of photocopying at Grenville, you've got a list of links for your students. That's a sort of a digital course pack. If it's not on a library database and you want to photocopy it, you know, as long as you're under the fair dealing guidelines, scan that and put it up onto Slate. There are ways that we don't have to use course packs anymore if you want to do that. And of course, you can still photocopy something and hand it out as long as you're within the fair dealing guidelines. Does that answer your question? Are we all ready for coffee? Thanks very much, everyone.